Alright guys, welcome back to another video. So in the description you'll find a zip file that will contain these animations. So I may repackage this so that the original package that you guys download at the beginning of this series will contain these. But for those that are that have been following along since I started, you can just get these and just drag them into the window here. I created a new folder called Interactions under the Matrix Bench animation folder to keep them separate. So these are Mixamo animations. We are going to assign them a skeleton. If it shows mesh right here on yours, then if it shows two options up here at the top, uncheck mesh. You don't want to import the mesh. But on mine, for some reason, it's actually not showing that, which is fine, I suppose. And then you're just going to select that SK mannequin. Make sure the use default sample rate is checked, and we're on exported time. So if you don't, you might end up with more keyed frames than what you expected. I don't know. It's a little finicky. I'm not real sure what causes that stuff with the import, to be honest. But I'll go ahead and show you guys the animations. So the animations are aligned to the loop animation, which are aligned to the other animations, the intro and outro. That way, the character won't rotate in place. And that's the reason why I aligned them. And so you'll see right here at the beginning, he starts off in the regular pose that the looping animation was in, and then transitions. So it's not the best transition, but it don't look bad. Anyway, you can apply compression to this animation to maybe save a little bit of space, and that's fine. You can do that. It shouldn't cause any problems, and it should maybe save you a little bit of space on these because they are pretty big animations. As you can see, they're 1,380 frames a piece. I made sure that both of them were the same length. These did come from Mixamo, so just let that be known. I did not make these animations. I did modify them though. So anyway, yeah. So with that out of the way, we will be having to play these as animation montages. Actually, I'll show you guys two ways to handle this. I did find a way to get around that jerking, but I'm going to go ahead and show you guys the way you're supposed to do it first, because I imagine that at some point they're going to fix this problem with animation montages, but I might be wrong. So I think this is a long-standing problem with montages. When I don't think montages are supposed to be looped. So anyway, we're good. We're just going to create anim montage from this. We don't need to make these root motion animations because if we do, I mean, we probably could, but it's kind of pointless. So because these roots aren't actually rotating, I'll actually show you that now. So there is a rotation on the root, but so I mean, but the root's not actually rotating, as you can see. It's static. So the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to put this on the full body slot. Let me see, actually. No, leave them on the default, my bad. I did that in my project, so I confused myself there. So we don't need any notifies on these. That's pretty much all we had to do. So let's come over here into the ST bench. So there are a few things that we're going to have to do here. So what we need to do, first off, let me explain to you what we're going to do. What we're going to do is we are going to relinquish control, and also, just so you guys know, each character has its own instance of this bench state tree when they interact with it. So they'll each be executing their own version of this. So what we need to do is we need to relinquish the control of the dependent slot and have the primary slot take control of that character. So over here on the primary tree, we want the primary tree that's executing this code right here on his instance. We want that one to be playing that actor as the tertiary role right here. But in order for them to know when to relinquish control and so on and so forth, we need events to fire, and we need them to be listening for these events. So what we're going to do is we're going to duplicate this, and we're going to call this loop sync. I'm going to duplicate this one, and I'm also going to call this loop sync. And to reduce confusion, I'm going to precede these with the number 2 for entry 2, which is the role name for that on that contextual animation. And this is just so that when we right click and we're binding to things, we don't get confused and bind to the loop up here instead of the loop down here. And that's the reason why I'm doing that. So it helps us distinguish these from each other. And that's the only reason why I'm doing that. And also you can rename these as well, in case you didn't know. So that's how you rename them. Let me just rename this back because I think that's a little weird. But anyway, and I'm just pressing F2 on the keyboard too, by the way, in case you didn't know you could do that to rename. It's pretty much a universal thing. You can press F2 on anything to rename it, basically. So anyway, we got these loop syncs. So what we want to do is we want to have them wait here. And on this one, we actually don't want to play a contextual animation at all. So we're going to remove these. We're going to add a task here that just has him delay. And it's going to be indefinitely. He's going to delay indefinitely. And you might be a little confused. Well, how do we transition out of this if no success task ever fires? Well, it's actually simpler than you think. If you noticed, I went over this, but I never really explained it because at the time I didn't understand it or its purpose. But under the transition, the trigger, there's an on event, and we're going to select that event. So that event is going to be listening for an event that's fired with a specific tag, and that's going to be the tag that when passed with an event that this is listening for, it's going to fire this event. And actually, I did find a way to manually pass this from one state tree to the next. So if you're using 5.3.2, don't, because a lot of this stuff doesn't work in 5.3.2. For example, well, some things don't work in here either. So whenever they released Unreal Engine 5.4 officially, it introduced a new bug. And basically, the way I was passing events, specifically to state trees themselves, stopped working. So they might have changed to the way they handled that, or it might be a bug. I don't know if it's a bug or if they just changed the way that's handled. I'll have to look into that later, but we can still use these because these are smart objects, and we have a specific way of doing this for smart objects. So I'm sorry I'm talking a lot, but I want to make sure you guys understand all of this. So we need some more tags up here. So let's actually start with that. So if you've been following along, and you should be following that playlist in order from first to last, top to bottom. That's the way I organized it. I organized it in a very specific way. I've noticed uh, that some people are handpicking what they want to watch, and like these two right here, they almost have, or these three right here, they almost have no views. And so, uh, if you're not following along with this from top to bottom, uh, then it's not going to work. So you need to know all of this stuff in order for this to work. But anyway, moving on, let's go to our project settings and go to gameplay tags. Right here, if you remember, we created this right here. And now we can just add a tag in here and it'll automatically add it to our tags. So I'm just going to copy and paste that. And I'm holding down Shift and pressing the right mouse button, and then holding down Shift and pressing the left mouse button to paste. So Shift right mouse button copies, and Shift left mouse button pastes. So it's a very useful that they added that when they did. I don't remember when they added that, but I think it was in Unreal Engine 5 at some point. So anyway, we're going to call this one Ready. And actually, I'm using the same naming convention that they used in that GDC video. And I imagine that the way I'm going to be using them is the same way they used them. But if you go watch that video, he never shows how to use these or how to do any of this stuff that I'm showing you. So I can't be 100% sure this is exactly how he handled it, but I think it follows the same principle. So I wouldn't be too worried about it if I were you guys. It'll work. So we have our ready and our stop. Now the stop one we're going to use to hand control back over to the dependent actor, and the ready is going to be the one that we use to transition both of them actually. So on this one, in order to, and actually we could also rename this to something that makes more sense. Wait for control, for example. And then this one, we're going to give it an event tag that says stop. So if it hears an event for stop, then it'll automatically transition out. And we want it to transition out to the outro. So we're going to select outro 2. And that's the reason why I renamed this, because we would have had two outros on here and it would have been hard to tell which one was which. They are in order though, so obviously the bottom one right there corresponds to the bottom one here, but still it reduces confusion. So we don't need any conditions for this, but I am going to add a delay here. And the reason why I'm going to add a delay is actually, you know what? Because we're setting it up the way that we're setting it up right here, we actually don't want a delay. Okay. So that's fine. We'll not add a delay to this one because I'm going to do this one a little bit differently. So, right. So I have a lot of tree felled states here, and really we don't need these um, anymore. I just like to have those for testing, and I still get confused sometimes. Like, why did it stop? Why isn't it working? But it'll automatically go back to the root if it fails. So me personally, I'm just going to remove these. But what we will do is if the root fails, we will add a tree fail. And it's very unlikely that the root will fail, but it could happen. If, for example, for some reason it's not detecting these slot tags, then it will fail. So And the reason why is because if we don't fell the tree, it'll keep trying and trying and trying every tick, and you'll have these little nodes dotted all across here. So if you see a bunch of little diamonds spammed across this board down here, then that's the reason why, is because it keeps failing on everything or on something specifically that it's stuck on. So it's not really necessary that we fail it, but it's kind of a performance thing. So let's see. So we've set up our event. We need to set up an event on this one too. So on this one, we're going to move this one to the top. I don't think it matters really if you're checking for an event. It doesn't matter the order, but I put it on top anyway. And you can also set it to a high priority just to make sure that nothing else overrides it. And we're going to set this one to ready. And we want this one to transition to the wait for control right here. Because if this one receives a ready, it's going to be receiving it from the primary. The primary is going to say, okay, I'm ready to synchronize with you. And so it's going to send a control, it's going to send an event to it that says, hey, I'm ready. And then this one's going to transition to the wait for control. And that's how that's going to work. So in order for this to work at all though, we actually need to add something to this root component right here. And you don't have to add it to this root, but if you don't add it to this root, then you'll have to add it to both of these. And that's the reason why I'm adding it to this root. And so we're going to change this from group to state. And again, this is something that won't work in 5.3. So if you're using 5.3, again, you need to be using 5.4. So what we're going to do is we're going to, under gameplay interaction smart objects, there's a listen slot events. We're going to just add that, and we're going to set the smart object claimed handle as the handle, because that smart object claimed handle is the claim handle for this dependence actor that's trying to interact with this bench. And so it's going to listen for the slot events. It's going to make sure that these receive the slot events. And there's also a send slot event here. So we're going to use that here. So whenever the dependence slot reaches his loop, he's going to send a slot event. And if there's a primary actor in this slot, which there should be since we're only enabling this slot, if the primary actor is sitting in that other slot, the primary slot. So if the primary slot is filled, then they can sit here. And if they sit here, then they're going to reach this loop and they're going to send an event to the primary saying, hey, I'm ready for you to transition if you're ready. And so we're going to send an event tag saying ready. We don't need a payload. I'm not sure when you might need a payload, but there's all kinds of stuff under here. Try not to select stuff under here if you don't know what you're doing, because it will crash the engine. I've already tried it. So we want this to be on interstate. So when they enter this loop, we want to automatically send this sync here. So since this slot gets enabled first, this actor will always be in this looping role right here by the time this one reaches his looping role, looping state. And so if this one is already waiting and we know that he's always going to always be waiting, then we can just send this slot. The slot is a one-time fire event. It's not going to be fired multiple times. So if he's not listening when we send to this, then he simply won't receive it. So over here on this one, we're going to add a listen slot event. And we're not going to have this random. We can't have it random. It needs to be predictable. So what we're going to do is we're just going to make it loop 5 times. So if it loops 5 times and for whatever reason nobody ever sat in this slot, then we just want him to transition to the outro. So over here on this state succeeded, instead of next state, we want that to be outro 1. So for any reason, nobody ever sits in the secondary slot, we just want him to transition out as normal. We don't want him to play this loop sync. So we need a second one that says on event ready, if this receives an event ready tag, then we want to transition to the loop sync. And so we'll select loop sync. And so you'll see if nobody ever sat in it or it never received a event tag, then we're going to just play the outro. But if it does receive an event tag, we're going to move over into this loop sync. So we have that synchronized. We're playing a contextual animation and we're listening for a slot event. So we're not actually going to send an event back from this same state. And the reason why is because I tried doing this and it seems to be a timing issue where if you do it from here, this one won't necessarily receive it. And so I'm going to send it from the next one. You could actually send it from this one, yeah. So we could send it from this one, but we'll have to send it on exit. So when he exits this state, so we have this on trigger, on enter state, we want to turn that to, change that to on exit state. And on exit state, we want it to send a ready event. So we'll try that, and if we have any problems, then we'll have to move over to this one. So there is a slight thing I overlooked. So we don't need this random one here. You could probably have these right here random since they're just waiting for a sync event, but I'm going to have those both set at like 5. So we actually need to send this event to the primary actor, but we don't have a reference to them because like I told you before, each actor gets their own instance of this tree. And so we need to find that slot. So I'm actually just going to add it to this one right here. That way we can grab it wherever on the children. And so we're going to add a find slot here. We're going to pass in the smart object claimed handle slot event. We want to look for the primary. Now we could try to use linked slots, but I think I tried this and had problems with it. I'm not really sure why. So what we're going to look for instead is the activity tag. So I'm going to copy and paste this runtime tag over to the activity tag. There might be a better way to do this, like naming convention or whatever. Like maybe the runtime tag would be enabled or something, and that would prevent you from needing to check to see if this is a primary on the runtime tag. But anyway, this will work for now. So we're going to change this to by activity tag, and so we need to actually, okay, we did. I just wanted to make sure. So we've got our tag. Now we need to get that on this one. So on the target slot for the send slot event, we want to set that to the find slot, result slot. That's the result that it's returning to us from that find slot event. Or function, I should say. task, whatever you want to call it. So on this one, we don't need to send one. On this one, we're sending on the outro, so we need to do the same thing here. Okay, we're already doing that here, so we don't need to actually, because it already has a reference to it by link tag. You can try setting this one up as a link tag, but I had tried it before and I had problems with it, so I don't know. But for the primary slot, it worked fine, if I remember correctly. So we'll see if this one is having problems for some dumb reason, then we'll have to swap this over to by activity. It won't be a big deal. So over here on this send slot event, we're going to use that one, the find slot, result slot. And so we're going to send this ready to this one right here. But on this one right here, we need to add one as well. So we're going to send a slot event from this one. We're going to send the event stop. And that tells him to stop this task and move on to the outro. So we need that to be on exit. So if we exit for any reason, either failed or succeeded, then we want to tell him to stop and play his outro. So they should be synchronized on the contextual animation, and that's why I'm not adding a delay, but on mine, I set mine up a little bit differently, and I'll probably show y'all how to do that as well, the way I did it, because actually the way I did it, you won't have that hitching between anim montages. So we need to set this to the result slot again, the target slot for the send event. And we don't want this to be random. Again, we need this to be a set number of times. And actually, we need this to be a sync. We're going to call that section name sync. And we need to set the tertiary actor. And I'm not pulling up. Oh, right. Okay. So let's add another event here. I'm just going to move this above the play contextual anim to make sure that it gets fired. Get slot actor. So we're going to set that to the find slot result slot. And so it's going to get the actor for that slot. That'll be the character that's actually being controlled. And we're going to set this to the result actor of that get slot actor. And our role is going to be, actually we already have it set over here, so let's just bind it to the secondary role name. Let's see. I'm not sure if I missed anything. So on this one, we don't need an event. If it's successful, we just want to go to the next state. When it goes to the next state, this send slot event should send this slot upon exiting this state. So yeah, I think we're good. Let's try and see. Well, we need to set up the animations right. Okay, so let's see, where's my contextual? Here it is. So go to the CS bench, and we're going to add a new AnimSet here. And we're going to call this sync, just like we did in there. And we're going to select the male talking for this role and the female talking for that one. You can mix and match them, whatever you want to do. And I thought I named it that sync, but press enter after you type it just to make sure, or click on this outside of it and it should. So if you notice before we have these random weights here, that allows you to add multiple AnimSets within a section. So I'll show you how to do that. And so you should see, okay, so we're still not in the sync section yet. That's why they're still standing. So go over to your sections and go to sync, and then you'll see both of them are sitting randomly. We're going to come back over here to the loop, and we're going to copy and paste these offsets. That is 180, so I'm going to manually type that in. So actually, let's do it this way. It'll be a little bit easier. I'll show you all how, so you know how. So you don't have to copy these individually. You can just shift right click this entire mesh to scene, and then come back over to the sync. Make sure you're selecting the same entry so that you're offsetting them to the right place. It looks like I might need to rotate them. Okay. So I might have, okay, so I'm gonna pause it here and I'm gonna fix these animations real quick. It looks like I might have overlooked something. So actually, I'll show you what I missed. So if we come back over here and we look at the bench looping animation and we select the root, you'll see the root has no rotation right here. And that's what I missed. So I thought I had fixed that. And so you'll see this one has a 180 degree off or 170 degree offset. I'm going to go in there and I'm going to fix this so whenever you get this to this part, you won't have this problem. But I'll go ahead and leave this in here so that if you're ever trying to modify animations and you have a similar problem, you'll know what caused it. And I'll be right back. All right, guys, so I'm back. It took me a minute to fix it, but it's fixed now. So you'll see there's no rotation on the root bone. So anyway, back to what we were doing. So I removed these. You'll have to, well, you won't have to worry about that if you're watching this. So first one I want to be the male. Second one, female. And so now you'll see on yours, you should already have this, but they should be aligned. So you'll see this is the animation. We can play it. And that's pretty much it. So I'll go ahead and show you how you could set it up to have random animations playing. And so if you add a new anim set and you set it to be the same section name, so this will be sync, and I'll just choose this one to be female, for example, and I'll choose this one to be male. So the roles will be reversed basically. And so if I just say, and I could change the weight so that it's less likely for this one to be chosen. And also there are some reset buttons, but for whatever reason they're hidden behind the scroll bar, so it's tricky to press them. And so you'll see that now we have two entries for these, for all of these, and one of them is grayed out. So we can select the first one, copy that, paste it. It looks like I might have accidentally. Okay, so I'll go back to the loop and I'll copy them from there. And make sure you're matching these roles here, that you're not putting them into the wrong positions, because there won't really be any way for you to tell. So it seems that whenever we added a new role, it reset this mesh to scene offset. So that might be something to be aware of. And now basically it should randomly pick one of these. And we can come in here and adjust the random weight right here on this set. And that is pertaining to the active set, the one that's not grayed out. So I don't know actually how to change to the other one, to be honest. Yeah, I haven't figured that out yet. This is something I haven't actually explored. But it should randomly choose one of these. We'll see. So anyway, let's go ahead and test it out and see what problems we have. I'm sure I overlooked something. There was a lot of things that we had to do. You've probably overlooked some things too. And we'll fix that foot sliding, or try to at least. On mine, I'm not really getting foot sliding like that, and it has something to do with the animations. Okay, so there we go. I'm actually surprised there weren't any problems. And so you'll see it randomly assigned to the primary to the male, but we'll start it back over and see if it randomly chooses the same one, or if it randomly chooses a different one. I'm not really sure exactly how that works, but they used that for the vehicle on the Matrix demo project, the Matrix Sample City Sample project. Okay, there we go. It is random. So that answered my question. It's just automatically random. I'm sure you can assign each of them different weights. I'm not really sure how to specifically assign each of them weights yet, but you'll see it is working. And so let's just let them play this one through to see if they both leave, because we want to make sure that the other one is receiving the stop event. So, and you'll see there is a little bit of hand clipping. Like I said, I didn't really go all out with trying to perfect this. So those animations, I just needed some kind of animation. Okay, and so it looks like he didn't receive the event. So let's try to see if we can figure that out. So he never received this event on exit. Yeah, so I'm thinking what we might need to do is make, yeah, okay. So this is what we'll do. Because the reason why it's doing this, let me just go ahead and explain to you why, is because both of these are the same length. And so what happens is the event that gets fired to transition to the outro, it's probably happening after uh, this primary one leaves, but the secondary one leaves at the same time that the primary one leaves. And so it's putting us in a precarious situation here. So this is what I suppose we'll do. So we're going to add some functionality inside of here. So off the locomotion state inside the animation blueprint. And if you don't know where that is, I'll go ahead and show you. So if you go under mannequins, animation, it's the ABP many right here. Also, you can get to it from the third person. I don't have that open right now, but if you go to the third person blueprints and open this up, you can go to mesh and you can say browse and it'll take you right there. So you can do it either way. Actually, we need to open up the third person character, so don't close that. What we're going to do is we're going to set up some tags. So let's go ahead and add a tag container. I'm just going to call this GT container. You can call it whatever you want. And this is going to be gameplay tag container. And we're going to create a blueprint interface. We're going to call it BPI smart. Let's just call it interactions. And we'll say get gameplay tag, get gameplay tags, and we'll add another one called set gameplay tags. And on the set, we need an input of gameplay tag and just a regular gameplay tag. I did that a little fast, sorry guys. So gameplay tag, it's right above gameplay tag container. And we'll just say gameplay tag. And on the get, we'll have an output, but this will be a gameplay tag container and gameplay tag container. And so we'll save that and we'll come back over to the blueprint. We'll go to class settings and we'll add that BPI interactions. And on set, we'll get this GT container and we'll say add gameplay tag. And we'll just connect that. On the get, we're just going to return that. So that's basically it. And we didn't really need to do that from a blueprint interface, but it prevents the need to cast. But in actuality, if you want, you could set this contextual actor class to be a third person. You could set it to be a third person character and then you won't have to cast it. So anyway, if you want this to be a generic class you can use on any character, then that's how you would do it. But in actuality, you're probably going to have a master class in the game and you're going to set this to be your master class anyway, so that you can access functionality that's specific to all characters. But anyway, so what we need to do is over here on the animation blueprint, we're going to drag off of this state right here under the main states state machine. We're going to add a state here. And I'm going to call this, I'm just going to call this bench. You could name this something generic and just use this for all contextual animations in general if you want. We're going to drag an output on this so that we can come back out. And then on our event graph, we're going to have to so this is already set up as a character, so we wouldn't be able to get that normally. So we're going to add another pin here, right here onto this. And I'm just going to pull down here and say RAR for reroute. And then we're going to, under references, we're going to get the character. And we're going to say get it gameplay. Get gameplay tags under PPI interactions. We're going to say as tag so if it has the tag set, and if you haven't added that sit one, then you'll have to go in there and add it. I think I had y'all add it before. We're going to say exact match. We want it to be an exact match. We don't want it to be a smart object or a smart object interaction. We want it to be a smart object interaction set. So that's how that works, in case you were wondering. So there we go. Still a little crooked, interestingly enough, but anyway, so if that's true, actually, let's just remove that and we'll just promote this to a variable. And we'll call that, well, it looks like we already have an is sitting. When did I add that? I don't remember. So you can just rename yours to is sitting if you don't have that. Oh, I think it was whenever I was experimenting before. Yeah, so y'all won't have that. So just promote it to that. If you compile, you'll see these warnings saying, hey, we don't have any transitions hooked up. So we're going to come in here and we're just going to say is sitting. And then over here on this other one, we're just going to say not. So if not sitting, now those warnings go away, but you'll see that it's still using an automatic, but it's set as looping. So I'm just going to disable that. Because it actually, I don't know why that's the case. That's kind of weird because if it's going to automatically transition at the end of the jump, then why have it looping? Seems a little weird. I mean, you don't have to do that if you don't want to, but you'll have that warning either way whenever you compile it. It might actually cause problems, I don't know, but I don't think it will. So we need an animation, right? So this is what we can do is we can come over here to the matrix bench and we can get this looping animation and we can just play that looping animation. I'm thinking that'll probably fix it. We'll see. If it doesn't, oh, well, we're not actually sending that, sorry. So this is what we're gonna do. On the entry animation, because the entry animation and the exit is the same on both. What we need to do is we need to add a tag. So was I experimenting with this? I'm not sure. I might have been experimenting with that. Yeah, okay, so anyway, we need to make an anim notify. So I'm just going to create it right here in this folder. You can create it wherever. This wouldn't be the place you would normally want to create it, but I'm going to do it in here anyway. So we're going to go to blueprint class. We're going to say anim notify right here. We're just going to create one of these. Do I have a sitting one in here? No, I don't. Okay. That's just a regular event. So we're going to call this an add gameplay tag. We're going to open it up and you'll see this crap right here. I don't know what's up with that. It's weird. You may not see this if you're in 5.3. Let's see. Go over here to the functions and override the receive notify, and that should fix it. And then so this is the mesh component. So we need to get the owner of this mesh component. So we're going to get owner right here under components. This will return to us the third person character. We're not going to cast to it because we have a blueprint interface. If you didn't use a blueprint interface, you'll have to cast to it. It'll create a hard reference. What that means is it'll force it to load into memory, which isn't a big deal since that character will always be loaded into memory while the game is open. But anyway, we're going to say add gameplay tag. Let's see. Yeah, add gameplay tag. Okay, yeah, so you have to do it. Oh, no. Okay, let me see here. I don't remember what I named that. Get, I set gameplay tag. Sorry, guys. I must still be half asleep here. Set gameplay tags. This is the target. And we want to promote this to a variable. And we want this to be instance editable because we want to be able to set this from the animation. So we could also add a return value to this, like if it were successful or not. Well, anyway, let's just do it like this. So over here, we're going to add this gameplay tag. So whenever he sits down, basically around the area where I set this at, and I'm just going to, I don't know what I did with that. I don't remember. So I'm just going to set it after that. So I'm going to add under here, add gameplay tag. I'm going to add that right there. And it looks like it did replace it. So let me come over here and make sure that on the event graph, I'm not actually using this. It looks like I was actually using this. Let me just remove that. And I'm going to do it this way instead. It looks like we need another one actually. Another function. We'll call this remove gameplay tag. And I should probably name this one set gameplay tag, not tags. And so this will take in a gameplay tag. And so back on the third person blueprint, we're going to double click this remove gameplay tag. And we're going to do a remove gameplay tag. Now in this one, you could actually add a return type to it and return this so that you would know if it's successful. Let's see. So I'll add a return type. It'll be a Boolean. And I'll just say success. And now over here, you'll see it's a gray one, remove gameplay tag. And we'll do the same thing basically. Except this time we'll return the value that it outputs. Now there are videos on about hard references and chain dependencies. If you want to look at the Unreal Engine videos on their YouTube page on that stuff, I advise you do so because it's worth knowing that. So we're going to duplicate this one. I'm just going to call this one remove. And on this one, just double click this right here. We're going to call remove gameplay tag message. It should have the envelope on it. And we're going to plug the success into the return value there. We're going to do the same thing here. And so that's basically all we need to do. So we've added it, now we need to remove it. So on exit, we're just going to remove it at some point. Also, we never set the actual gameplay tag, I don't think, so we need to set that. So we're going to remove the sit gameplay tag, and then on the other one, we need to, and that seems to be a bug, as you noticed how they moved in there. It's weird. I didn't start noticing that until 5.4. And we're just going to set that to sit. So it's going to add the sit tag here, and it's going to remove it on the other one. If yours ever looks like that, just press the reset. It's probably just a refresh issue. So anyway, that should be pretty much it. So let's just go ahead and test this. And in Unreal Engine 5.4, you have to hold Shift and press the star key on your numpad in order to see those little slots, if you were wondering. And so, you know, they're performing their interactions. Let's see. Also, we can pause this, and since there's that bug, that hitching bug, we should, inside of here, see them start blending out of this state into this state. So right now we're playing a slot, but actually we've blended into the locomotion state, but it looks like is sitting is set to true. So that's probably just a bug because we paused it, a refresh bug. So you should see it flash into this state every so often. Oh, right. We don't have random animations playing right here, but at the end, they should transition into this state while they're waiting on that event to fire. Yeah, so they flashed into that state. Okay, that's interesting. It looks like it started over. Oh, I might have set up multiple animations here. Let's see, multiple, did I? Oh, okay, it's supposed to loop 3 times. Okay, and so you'll see it randomly chooses one every time. That's interesting. Um, but that's actually going to make the debugging phase too long. So I'm going to set these looping to, well, this one needs to be 5, but this one we want to be 3. I mean, 1, so that it only loops 1 time because we're just trying to test to make sure that it's going to receive the event. But you'll see he didn't stand up, which is the problem that we had before. So it should only play it 1 time this time. And they are long animations, so I apologize for that. But um, like I said, I didn't want to spend too much time. Those were Mixamo animations. I just wanted some kind of animations that I could share with you guys that we could use for the purpose of this. So we need to make sure, though, that this is going to transition properly. And I know this is a really long video, but this is kind of a time-consuming process sometimes testing this stuff. And you'll see the fingers are kind of weird in some places. That was from the retargeting, probably. I overlooked that. Okay. So there you go, guys. So everything's working, and yeah, they're starting over again because we're looping it. But yeah, that's pretty much it. So I'll tell you, I'll just go ahead and break down how I did this. So what I did is I had both of these on mine. Actually, I can go ahead and open up my project and just show you how I did mine. So you'll have to wait a moment because this will take a second. So rather than walking you guys through it, I've pretty much already set it up for you guys so that it's in a similar state. All right, guys. So in my project, I'll go ahead and break it down to you how I'm doing it. So this is my state tree right here. Also, if you ever see that question mark on these state trees, always compile it because if you don't, they may not work. It's a bug. Hopefully they fix it soon. But I'm basically doing the same exact thing. So I'm getting the slot actor. I'm sending a slot entry event right here. I renamed this to slot entry event to make it more obvious what this one is because I have 2 of them here. And so I don't want them to both be called send slot events. I want one to be called slot entry event and exit event. But basically I'm doing the same thing. And instead of sending this ready one at the end of this one, I'm sending it at the start of this one. It's the same concept basically, so it doesn't really matter which order you do that in. So on the primary actor, I'm playing a random idle animation montage. And whenever this animation montage ends, it's going to end this entire state and it's going to move into the outro state. But while it's in this state and it's randomly playing one of these, and before it gets to the end of them, I have a reaction wait. And so during this reaction wait over on the animation blueprint, uh, I'm doing basically the same thing you guys were doing, except I'm actually doing the has check right here, which is probably less performance friendly. I'll probably move mine over to my blueprint thread safe event. Uh, but anyway, it's the same concept. I'm doing a check here to see if they have that tag, and if they don't, I'm gonna transition back out. So on this one, you'll see I did this one a little differently, and I'll explain to you why. So when playing animations from on become relevant, and that's an event on the sequence player where you can add functions. Uh, so so when playing animations from on become relevant that need to blend, there doesn't seem to be another way to loop them and have a different one selected every time simultaneously. So this was my solution: have looping disabled and swap between them. Uh, I got the ideal from Lyra because Lyra used this one of their on one of their animations. I think it was the one. I think it was the pivot that used this. So they're both playing the same sequence player, as you can see, and it's an automatic rule base. So whenever this one is done playing that animation, it's going to blend into this one, which is going to play an animation. And in case you're confused as to why, it's because I'm actually passing in an array of context animations to this, and it's going to randomly play one. And if I don't do it the way I did it, if I try to set this sequence to looping, if I set that to looping, it's only going to ever pick a random one once whenever it first enters this state. Whenever it gets to the end of this animation, this won't fire again, and so it won't choose a different animation. So in order to continuously choose random ones at the end of each animation, that's why I did it that way. So um, these are basically just the looping animations, and then and actually yeah, so those are the looping animations. So the primary character is playing a random animation montage on the dependent character. So and it's doing this on random intervals. So I'm doing a random delay here, and then while I'm waiting, it's going to be playing one of those random looping animations. And then at some interval, it's going to play a random interaction event. You know, he's going to start laughing suddenly or something like that. It makes it seem more random and more like they're actually talking, and so that's the reason why I did that way. But everything else is I'm basically doing the same exact way on here, and you'll see. So on this one, I actually didn't have a delay task. I don't have any task, and so when it enters this one, uh, and so actually we didn't need a delay on ours. But anyway, it was redundant. You can remove it if you want. You just need an event to tell it when it can transition out. So anyway, guys, if you want me to do a video breaking down how I did this one, let me know. But I don't really have any other interaction animations other than the two that I made for you guys. So I mean, we could, I guess, use those, but Anyway, this video is already too long, so I'm going to stop it here and get this to you guys. Make sure to be liking these videos and watch them in order, guys, because like I said, a lot of people aren't watching them in order, and it's really important that you get all this information. I'll see you guys in the next video.